guys. Welcome back. This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. I'm so glad you guys are hanging out with us here. You know, this show is created to discuss life topics, to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. And today I have Paul Henderson here, and he is an author of a book called Slave No More, Conquering the Master Within. And it teaches you how to overcome life circumstances and live a life free from belief in limitation. You know I'm all about that. I'm all about that. He is the dean of students. He's a motivational speaker. He's a former track and field athlete. And so I am super stoked to have you here, Paul. This is like my thing. I love people who love to like impact people's minds, and kind of like push them outside of their boundaries. And that sounds like you're that kind of guy. Right?
Hey, absolutely. That's what I definitely try to be, Nina. I'm so glad and I'm so thankful that you've invited me to your platform. Absolutely.
Thank you. Listen, the feeling is definitely mutual. So the way I like to start my show is I always like to have people get to know you a little bit more. So I give a little intro, but I want to know who Paul is. So tell us, who is Paul? I know that's a little question, but just go ahead and take it how far you want to take it. Who is Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Paul Henderson, once again, I'm married to my bride, Kiara Henderson of beloved mama. And, she is inspiring mamas in her own right. So we've been married for 10 years now. We have 4 boys, ages 9, 7, 4, and almost 2. So almost 5-year-old, almost 2-year-old.
Wow.
So it's a lot of action.
A lot of action. I had 3 boys. I remember.
Yeah. So, and it's funny. I actually come from a family of 6 boys. I'm the second of 6 boys. I'm the one that carried the boy gene. My brothers have a bunch of girls. So, we definitely come from an athletic background. My mom actually played basketball at Hampton University. My brothers played sports all through high school and college. My dad was a baseball player as well. One of my brothers ended up playing a little bit of professional baseball. Got drafted in the Dodgers organization. I personally ran track and field at Virginia Commonwealth University, where I actually went there to study history, got my master's in teaching. But after that, I actually got involved with a group or ministry called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Because
cool.
I realized that was a group that played a very big role in my life as a student athlete at VCU. So when it came time to teach or go on staff, they actually had both offers or at the same time. Should I teach and be in a classroom or go on staff with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes? And for that period, I thought it was the right thing for me to do. And it was. I did that for 8 years, which is where my sports chaplain work and motivational speaking, came into play. And I did that for 8 years, work with athletes from the middle school, high school, collegiate level, all the way up to the professional level. And then now current day, I'm the dean of students at a small Christian school here in Richmond, Virginia. So life is good. Life is good. And I'm an author of a brand new book, Slave No More, Conquering the Master Within. I'm really excited.
You know we're gonna get to that, right? You know we're gonna get to that.
Okay. You know what? I know we are, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to
it. I think you said that it was a Christian athletes. What is it called? What's the whole title?
Yeah, Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yeah, FCA for short. We call it FCA. Yes.
They're like all over the country, though, right?
All over the country, all over the world, right?
Yeah, because I've heard of them here I live in Connecticut, and I've definitely heard of them here in Connecticut. That's why I'm like, wait, I know that name. Okay, great.
Right.
So you were always an athlete. So, was that something that, you feel like developed you into who you are today? Like, the discipline of that, the struggle of that, because being an athlete, I am not an athlete, right? But I've spoken to many athletes, and that's one thing I realize is they have to build a mental toughness around being an athlete, right? Do you think that's what helped you develop that mindset?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I look at in particular my collegiate career. And I was a walk on at VCU. What we call an invited walk on, meaning I walked onto the team. I traveled. I competed on a conference level. Made all conference. 1 year. On a relay team, not in an individual event. So I was what we call an invited walk on. But even with that, you had certain things that you had to do. So, for example, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we were getting up at 5:45 or 5:30, 5:45 because we had to go to the weight room,
Mm,
and then on top of that, we had practices every day, Monday through Friday, and then you're also expected to do, the little things, going on your own runs or doing little things to keep yourself in shape. These were all things that we had to do on top of the normal college course load. So there
right.
was definitely a discipline that was there. Now, when you're around all athletes, sometimes you may not realize how disciplined you've been because everyone that you're with is living
Right.
the exact same life.
Right.
But once you finish, once you wrap up, and you realize, wow, I've been able to learn a little discipline. I've been able to learn, some focus here because of what I went through, running for 4 years on a collegiate
Mm,
level, and
mhm.
um, it's so good. It also built in that competitive nature,
I'm
if you
sure.
will.
I'm sure.
Absolutely,
And with 6
absolutely.
boys around, I'm sure that was always a problem, right? Boys competing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we weren't competing, something was wrong. There was
Right.
absolutely something wrong if we weren't competing. And to this day, it's still the same thing.
Right. Oh, that's so good. So I wanted to talk to you about, because the book has such a strong title, right?
Right,
I wanted
right.
to talk to you about that. Like, obviously the title's intentional about not being a slave
Mhm.
to your mindset and to your limiting beliefs. So
Absolutely.
was that something that you struggled with, is having like beliefs that were, coming against you, that made you go, I really need to overcome this? Or what's that about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So,
Mhm.
so the book, once again, "Slave No More: Conquer the Master Within," is inspirational fiction, and it
Mm.
follows a young adult's life. The guy's, and his name is in the book. His name is Bobby, and it follows his life, and basically Bobby's similar to myself. He's a former athlete on a high school and collegiate level, and what happens is when he's like at work, for example,
Mhm.
sometimes he may be struggling with a work project, and what happens is he's taken back to his college career or
Mm.
to how he grew up. Things, negative words that were spoken over him that followed him throughout his life and over the course. And we'll get to some of this later. He learns how to overcome. But a lot of the character development actually came from some of my personal life. For example, I remember when I was in high school. So back in 2002, we had a pretty good relay team, and we'd always compete well locally on the district level, but we had some trouble making it to the state level.
Mm.
When it came to our 3,200 meter relay team or 4x800 relay team, and what happened was this particular year we had a shot. And our coach was looking at us. He said, "Okay, I see what we have here. I think we can finally do some damage beyond our locality." So,
Mhm.
so what happened was I just come off of a surgery. I had a little operation a few months earlier, and coach really wanted us to perform well. We all did. And I remember one practice, Nina. He said, "You know what? You guys, we have a chance to compete this year. But if I'm honest, Paul, you are the weakest link."
Mm.
And I mean it hit me. Now, granted, to his credit, he was trying. That was his method of motivating me. He
Right.
he would always pick on me and say, "Paul, how come I have to talk to you that way in order to get you to run faster?" But what happened was I took those words and
Mm.
they followed me. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that was his intention because he's actually the
Right.
one that said, "Paul, you can compete on a collegiate level." He's the same coach that said that. But I took those words and I internalized them, and they followed me for quite some time.
Believe it.
So I would go to college or even my time with FCA, I would be struggling with a certain aspect of my responsibility, and I would be hearing, "You're the weakest link." So it's
Mm.
almost like I was enslaved to that
Yeah.
mindset, you
Yeah.
know, of battling. I don't want to be the weakest link because it would follow me. So I
Yeah.
had to learn how to overcome, what I perceive as negative that was spoken over my life.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like you do become a slave to it, right? And then you start making choices that you
Mhm.
normally maybe wouldn't have made. You or running away from something that you maybe wouldn't have run away from,
Right.
and I think that happens to a lot of us. And you're right, Paul. I think we have to be careful with our words too, right? Because that can
Right.
build somebody up and tear them down
Absolutely.
just that quick, right? I had a first grade
Absolutely.
teacher that called me stupid. And
Mm,
because she called me stupid, I carried that with me for every time I did something. I'm like, oh my God, you're so stupid. You're so stupid. And it's like
mm,
the words are powerful things, Paul. Words are
absolutely.
powerful things, right? And so
Absolutely.
you probably, getting into this and growing up in sports and all that, but then you also got into teaching.
I
So
did.
are you intentional too about what you say and do? Because
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes you
Yeah.
don't even realize that you might say something too, right? So are you intentional, or have you ever been like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that, like, type of
Yeah.
thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the story goes, after I left FCA back in 2016, I said, you know what? I think the next thing for me to do would be to teach. I was,
Mm,
and I'll be honest, I left FCA at the time. I was struggling with some things. We had to fundraise. So we had to do the ministry aspect of it. We had to do
mhm,
the job, and then we had to go out. We also had to raise money for our own position. And
right.
I came to a point where I was really struggling with that. We would have fundraisers, and man, the numbers just wouldn't add up after the events. And after a while, I'm like, I have a family, I have to eat. So I
Yeah.
ended up stepping away, which was a very hard decision. But it turned out to be a good thing because I realized my identity was actually there, rather than who in my belief who God
Oh,
made
that's
me to be.
good. That's
So
good.
it was a very good thing for me to step away from that platform and go into a teaching environment. And it wasn't just any teaching environment. I was teaching in a private alternative school, in the backwoods of right outside of Richmond, Virginia.
Right.
So I was going there every day. Now, mind you, the year before, I had spoken to my first NFL team, guys who assigned multi-million dollar contracts, coming to me, shaking my hand, saying, I appreciate what you said because you really helped me tonight. One
Mm,
year later, I'm I'm in the backwoods with kids who are calling me everything but my name. and
right.
but you know what, Nina, every morning I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing. Your life has value. Your life
Mhm.
has purpose. Your life has value. Your life has purpose. You can do all things. It doesn't matter what people have said to you. You can do all things, and your life has so much value.
Yeah.
And what I was realizing was so many of these kids, they were living in group homes, they were living in foster care of some sort. I think maybe only a couple of kids in the school live with their actual
Wow.
biological parents. So every day I had that opportunity, and the story goes is, and with after the first semester, the school shut down. They had 4 campuses. They said we have to shut
Oh
excuse me,
no.
we have to shut one campus down, and that ended up being my campus. So half the staff was sent to work at another campus, and the other half of the staff, myself included, we were laid off.
Wow.
But I remember one of the last conversations that we had with the students. One student who had given me a lot of trouble, he said, Henderson, he said, I know I give you a lot of times, and I know so many times I'll come up to you and I say I don't like you. He said, but the reality is, every morning you would always say, my life has value, my life has purpose. He said, sometimes that was just hard for me to accept because you don't know what I went through over the weekend.
Wow.
So I'm so glad that it was there that we was speaking life, and my only hope and prayer is
Right.
that is continue to follow them here if I
Right.
a few years later. So absolutely, and
That's
that was my
amazing.
teaching role, not my current role, but that was the last education role that I had. Absolutely.
Yeah, and exhausting, right? Because when you
Yeah.
constantly have to, um, you know, uh, speak that speak that to yourself as well, right? Because you have the weakest link thing still here, and so
Right.
it's
Right.
very easy for you to get derailed. But it's a good thing when you do keep speaking life in spite of how you feel, in spite of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so
Right.
you mentioned a couple times, so I want to touch on a little bit about your faith. Is that
Yeah.
something
Right.
that you grew up in faith, or was that something you discovered as you were older? Was it always planted in you? How does God play a part in this?
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. I come from one of those families that we were in church,
6
Sunday
days a week.
school. Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
I give
we
that
were
to my kids, so I know.
yeah, we were in church. We were in church so much, and so I remember, and it was crazy because my dad, so we had Sunday school with my dad. Then we had my dad was a children's church teacher. And then we had our family Bible studies on Monday nights with my dad leading. And then we had our Wednesday night Bible studies where my dad was also the teacher,
Right.
and then if we had vacation Bible school, half the years my dad was a teacher for my vacation Bible school class. So we were always there, and I joke about that a lot. But at the end of the day, I'm so thankful. As a matter of fact,
Mm,
I spoke at an event just yesterday, and I was talking with my mom right before, and just thankful because at the end of the day, the seeds that they've planted, they're able to see their fruit
yeah.
in
Yeah.
their son's life. And so I'm definitely thankful for the seeds that were planted. And obviously I had to grow. I had to learn how to make the faith my own
Yeah.
after a
Yeah. For
while,
sure.
and through some of the struggles I had in college
Yeah.
and some of my young adulthood. I really was able to say, okay, who is Paul Henderson? Not
Hmm.
Stephen
Hmm.
Sonny Henderson's son, but who am I? Who does
Right.
God
Right.
say I
Right.
am? And so
Right.
that's been a big part of my journey. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It was because you mentioned your dad. At first, you mentioned your mom. Where did you have both of your parents growing up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
amazing. That's awesome, right? Because I think that plays a big part too in how we grow up, right? I didn't have my
Sure,
dad; he
sure.
was never there. But I do speak to people who have had both of their parents and people who only had one parent, and I just feel like there is such a big blessing and benefit to
Mhm.
having both parents. Not that a single
Right.
parent can't do it, because I
Absolutely.
was one,
Yeah.
but there is a blessing in that, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
There's like a solid foundation that you're on when you're
Yes.
when you're growing up with both parents, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And my
Yeah.
wife and I, we come from opposite ends of the spectrum. Not only were her parents not together, but she was also raised for a portion of her life, by her grandmother.
Mhm.
So sometimes we'll just talk about different scenarios that we've had. And even though through life, you grow up, and sometimes you,
Yeah.
you, you had different challenges. Even if it's with your parents, the fact that we've been able to work through some of those things. I'm just so thankful for the seeds
Yeah.
they planted, and the fact that we do have a common faith that's allowed us to work through those things. And it
Mhm.
also just reminds me as well to always find a reason to be grateful. Always find the
Yeah.
reason to be thankful,
Yeah.
even through the ups and downs.
Absolutely. An attitude of gratitude will get you far, Paul. Because you know what? I think that we have so much more than we realize, recognize, acknowledge. He looks after I'm a big believer. I love the Lord. And I just feel like when I start to complain, I'm like, girl, girl, really? You know, as you complain, as you're talking on your new cell phone, getting into your new car, going to that big job. Okay, you
Yeah,
complaining.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
correct check myself real quick. But I understand that, and it's a great journey that you're on, because you are also using what you are learning, who you are as a person, and what has been instilled in you to pour into other people. And so I that's what I loved about reading your bio and what you're doing, and the book, which I'm planning on picking up a copy. So I'm just wondering, now that you have that together, right? Now you're the dean of students and you're a motivational speaker and you have your book and you have all of this. So what are you doing now to like impact the world in Paul's way? What is it that you're doing now to do that?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great question. Great question. So the first and foremost, and I always put this plug in because I never want it to be assumed. First and foremost, my responsibilities here with my wife and children.
That's right.
So I was
Hmm.
I was talking to my boys last night. One thing that I always say, and is I even have a little coffee mug here that my wife found for me, is one day at a time. I always
Hmm.
tell my boys that even as a father, my goal is to always, and I say this on my Fatherhood on the Fly blog, we're learning, we're growing, and we're getting better one day at a time, just one day at a time.
Hmm. One
So
day at a
first and
time.
foremost, I'm trying to be a better husband one day at a time, and then
That's
also,
good.
how can I be a better father one day at a time? Because
Right.
at the end of the day, if I'm not doing that, everything that I'm doing outside into school, I'm a dean of students at a private school with about 170 kids, a small school. Um, how impactful am I really being
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
my home life isn't right? So
Hmm.
thankfully, about almost a year ago, at the spring of in the spring of last year, I was actually I was actually approached by the head of school at a private school, at a school I actually spoke at when I was with FCA. I was approached by this school, and they said, "You know what, Paul? I see what you're doing on your blog, and would you be willing to have a conversation to be our dean of students?" And I'm like, um, "You realize I only taught for like half a year, right?"
Right.
So, but he said, "You know what? I see. I think this is something that you can grow into, and the principles that you've been putting out there on your blog, and some things that you put in your book. I think it'll be really impactful." So,
Yeah.
actually, the in between part, I left teaching because of the layoff. I actually wrote this book during that layoff. Within those 5 months I was laid off, 5 or 6 months I was laid off. I actually wrote this book,
Wow.
and then I got into corporate America for about 4 or 5 years. And it's amazing that right when I was in the publishing process, the dean of students thing came. So I'm able on a daily basis. I do the chapel about three times a month. I'm doing the chapel, and the students are seeing me on the screen, telling them who they are, how God sees them, and how much value
Mm,
their life has. I'm able to walk by a student on a daily basis, say, "Hey, you're a winner. Hey, your life has value. Hey, I'm so happy to see you." Because you'd be amazed, and not even just the students, but the teachers.
right.
Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes they just need to hear, "Hey, I'm happy to see you," or "Hey, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job."
Yep.
Little things like that I'm able to do on a daily basis, Nina, and I can't tell you how. Yeah, I find so much joy in that. So much joy.
Yeah, because a lot of adults are broken children.
Hmm.
Right? I mean,
Right,
a lot of adults have gone through some stuff and they're still broken inside. Their child inside is still, hurting. Right?
right, right.
So just acknowledging somebody and just showing them that they have value and worth is impactful, Paul. It
Mm,
is more impactful than you think, right? Like we say
right,
it because we really mean it
right,
and then we move on with our lives, but that does what the coach did to you. It stays in the back of their head, right?
right,
And they
right.
might not always think about it immediately, but somebody else will say it, and then that's when the seed just got watered, and here it
Mm,
grows, you know,
mm.
right? So so that, that
Can I
one,
say something about that? Because
sure,
that
yes,
that okay. So once again, it's inspirational fiction. In
right,
chapter 11, it's probably the chapter I've revisited so many times, right? I actually, when I was out of work, I had opportunity. I had more time on my hands. I'm looking for jobs and everything, but I had more time on my hands. I started writing this. My oldest two sons were 4 and 2 years old, and we had an infant. My baby boy was about a month old. Okay, so I had more time on my hands, and one of the things that I really enjoyed doing, because inspirational fiction, but you have
hmm,
a little leeway to be creative. And one thing that was good about being out of work is my mind wasn't filled with work stuff.
mm,
So one day I was like, "Man, let's go to a fire station." So I packed my boys up and we took them to a fire station because I
how
had this
fun,
thought along the lines of what you're saying about watering seeds. I had
hmm,
this thought in which I put here in the book through story form, and that I've seen here that I've been able to implement in my vocation as a dean of students. See, you have what's called, you have a fire hose, and they also have a water hose. Okay, your fire hose, you're extinguishing fires, right? I see a
mm,
big fire here. We got to put that fire out, right? They have a water hose that's meant to more so nurture. You may wash your car with it, but you're more so watering a garden. You're trying to water those seeds. What happens, Nina, is some people have bad seeds that have been planted for so long, and I like to compare those to a destructive fire. So you have to
mm,
use that fire hose in order to extinguish it. You have to get the fire out. Then you have to
hmm,
till the ground, and then you're able to plant good seeds, so you're able to produce a good
right,
fruit. And
right.
that's one of the things that I actually talk about in through story forming in chapter 11. And
Right.
so we're on the same page there.
Yeah,
I'm in
we sure
so
are,
much
Paul.
agreement.
We are. And you know what you're talking about, because I love when the season is nice, I love planting things. And you're talking about, putting out the fires and watering and seeing them grow, but there's also a process that has to go
Mhm.
through, which is pruning, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so when I have to cut my plant, I'm like, "Oh, I feel so bad for you, sweetheart, but you're gonna grow bigger and stronger than you ever were," and that's when I get my best tomatoes and peppers and everything
Mhm.
else, right?
Mhm.
And that's our
Absolutely.
life, Paul. I mean, how many times does the Lord have to prune us, right? Because we think we are all that in a bag of chips, and he just removes the chips. No, you ain't no chips. Right? You take those chips over here. You think you
Right.
something you ain't, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But Paul, you're doing really phenomenal work. And so before I let you go, because I don't want to, I know we could probably sit here and talk forever.
We probably could.
Um, I really want to know where my people can support you, find you, see what you're doing. You mentioned your blog too. So I'd like you to tell us where we can find your blog, where we can find your book, all that great stuff before I let you go. So go ahead, hit it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at fatherhood underscore on the fly. That's
Oh,
fatherhood underscore on the fly, and that's where I post most of my content. Some towards fathers or just parents, and a lot of parents in general
okay.
have found value there. And then on my website is paulanthonyhenderson.com. That's paulanthonyhenderson.com. And then on LinkedIn is, just the whole LinkedIn handle, but PA Henderson
Right.
too. PA
Okay.
Henderson too. So that's where I am. And then the book you can pick it up. You can pick it up at any online, any retailer online, Amazon,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, or just type in "Slave No More, Conquer the Master Within." It'll show up on a few different places. And
That's just
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
That's really, really great. I'm really happy about all the work that you're doing and the life that you lead and the way you impact people. I'm very, not that I need to be, but I am very proud of you, Paul, because I like human beings that are human. You know what I mean? That you
absolutely,
actually care about others. And that is so close and dear to my heart because that's how I live my life, impacting everybody's life. Even if I could just do it 1% at a time, that's what
absolutely.
I'm going to do.
Worth it.
So thank
Absolutely.
you so much for being on Straight Talk. I am
Thank you
really
so much,
grateful.
honey. Thank
Really,
you.
really grateful.
Thank you so much for having me, Nina. I really enjoyed myself.
Oh, me too. Thank you. And guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. As always, make sure that you smash that like button, share, and have some people come on here to listen to these very important conversations. I'm going to make sure to put all of Paul's information below in the show notes. That way you can click and follow and share and support all of that great stuff. So thank you guys for being here. As you know, this is Neena Perez, Straight Talk, no sugar added. Until next time.
This broadcast is brought to you by Winject Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.